One of the questions that's come up in our study of Acts is what the greater context is for this book. So I thought I would start big and work down to the book of Acts. The Bible is not a book. It's an anthology. It's a collection of different kinds of writing. Some of it is poetry, and you can take a look at the left and right margins, and every line is indented. It looks physically like poetry. It's typeset like poetry. So when you read it, you should think, how do I feel, not what do I think or something. Parts of it are kind of historical, chronological. They tell a story in a time sequence. Other stuff reads more like a phone book, or if you're too young to know what a phone book is, something like a directory. It's just lists of names and information and stuff like that. About 3/4 of the Bible that we usually use is the Old Testament, stories about from the beginning of time up to hundreds of years, centuries before Jesus. It tells the story of the Jewish people, and it's organized roughly as a bunch of chronological books, followed by a bunch of other writing, poetry, prophecy. The remaining fourth of the Bible we usually use is the New Testament, and it tells the story about Jesus. So there are, again, 5 kind of historical books, and then the rest are basically letters written to usually churches, sometimes individuals, many of them attributed to the Apostle Paul. And of those 5 historical books telling the story about Jesus and the early church, so spanning, I don't know, on the order of a few decades, there are 4 stories, 4 Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, that tell the story about Jesus. And then Acts, which is a sequel to the Gospel according to Luke, and it tells the story about the early church. At first, the church was a collection of the Jews, a small community of Jews, who had been transformed by their experiences of Jesus, and so devoted themselves to their communal life, holding all things in common, praying, experiencing the same miracles, preaching, evangelizing. The small community of Jews was kind of disrupted by both its growth, but particularly by Paul, who showed up, started evangelizing a bunch to the Gentiles, and the church spread so much among the Gentiles, non-Jewish people, that the introduction of these non-Jews into the Christian community transformed the character of the Christian church, and today we think of Christianity as being a global church.